Okay, hey guys, welcome to another episode of Fuck Ups and Success. Today we've got Peter Grech with us. He's the founder of Brandwagon, digital agency that we've all heard about on the island, that's been working on some of the most exciting projects we see coming out of entrepreneurs. So I was really happy he decided to join us here today. Thank you for coming, Peter.
Thanks for having me. I'm loving it being in here. I might wander off and start playing the drums at some point in time, but yeah, good to be here.
That's something you mentioned in our quick chat before we actually met up, is that you actually come from a music background at your core. So I didn't actually think that you'd be wide-eyed in the room, but you definitely are today.
Definitely. If I wander off, just shout back so I come back into the call.
all right. Maybe we'll get some. You used to sing, right?
I used to sing. Yes.
Okay. But you ever played some instruments?
Yeah. I still play guitar a bit.
Play a bit of guitar.
Yeah. Cool. Whatever we can get our hands onto.
Cool. I have some questions for you later about how music formed your life experience and your journey. But I actually wanted to start with some digging I did on your LinkedIn profile, which was a post you did a few weeks back, which was about reverse mentoring. And you found that interesting. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes. Of course I do. Yeah. Reverse mentoring. That's a very exciting thing. And actually, I think it's a really important element, I think, in the growth of leaders and in the growth of CEOs and nonetheless in the growth of organizations. Fundamentally, the concept over there is that, as we grow into organizations, as we grow up in organizations, the experience that we share with others, I think, is really important. So the older people mentor the younger generation. Having said that, not falling by the wayside and not being in a position where you kind of lose touch. I think it's always great to get mentored by people who are younger than you, who are people in a different situation than you are in, and to actually see things from different angles. And I think that's really key. I'm very keen on self-awareness. I think that, as leaders, I think self-awareness is one of the biggest gifts and one of the most important parts of leadership. And the more we are aware of who we are, what we do, our blind spots, I think the more effective that we can be as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as whatever it is our purpose is in this world. So I think reverse mentorship is one of the exciting things that are coming to. So yeah. So
reverse mentoring, it seems like you're also sourcing ideas out from younger people. Does it have to do with influencing your own creativity in a way?
I think as people, we need to get affected by everything that we see around us. I think that we need to be open for inspiration from wherever it comes. I've got 3 young kids, so nothing really scares me anymore. And sometimes they're my biggest teachers. Sometimes they expose life in a very, very different angle. Obviously, looking at your kids is very far down the wayside. But having said that, looking at angles from people who see things differently, I think that's the most important part. So whether that comes is, from people you look up to, people you work with, who might be, your own employees or people that you lead, I think you can get inspiration. I think you can get thought leadership to a certain extent from anywhere. And I think it's really important that we do listen, and we don't, just close our eyes and say, I've been there, done that, and I know it. I think it's just so important. Basically, keep learning. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. When I started off, I described Brandwagon as a digital agency. Is that the right way to describe it?
Well, probably not. Having said that, defining an agency is something which is very, very hard. In fact, today we see ourselves more as a sort of creative consultancy. I think that would be really the best way to put it. We work really hard in taking great brands in front of our in front of great audiences. So that's kind of how we define that. How you get there, it works through effectively strategy, design, tech, and all angles of creativity. We help, entrepreneurs, brand leaders, brand owners, take their brands to the next level, whatever that might mean in whatever situation you're looking at. So, you need to get to your customers wherever they are. Now, whether that is using social media, whether that is face-to-face, or whether that's through word of mouth, the oldest trick in the book, whatever it takes. And Brandwagon does that. So effectively, I would say we're a creative consultancy.
It's interesting. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, but you're also helping other entrepreneurs to along the way to reach their growth through your branding, through your creativity. That's also kind of similar to work that accelerators and incubators do. Do you ever feel that way?
Absolutely. It's actually one of the spaces that I think we see most of our growth happening in as Brandwagon. So over the years, we've seen a lot of great ideas come to us. And we've seen a lot of great ideas effectively go to the bin. And that's a sad side, So what we try and do today is to try and work with entrepreneurs who have great ideas and help them get to the point where they can actually accelerate their business idea, or whatever their idea is, whether it's a charity as well, take it to the next level. Sometimes, people have constraints in terms of costs, people have constraints in terms of time, people have constraints in terms of whatever it might be. We try and break down those barriers. Now, of course, working with Brandwagon, we are an agency which I suppose people need to put some investment into working with. And so when we find, great ideas, and more than great ideas, great people behind great ideas, we are happy to also invest in those people. So some of the things that we've done over the years is when, an entrepreneur comes to us and they have a great idea, but they can't afford working with us, we work with them, potentially take some, we swap some equity for work, and we help them along the way, whether that is through just, working on design ideas, building their brands, some strategy work, some, comms work, even building their websites or even their whole technical platforms, and then taking a cut in their business. We always go for a minority cut. So it's not like we're going to try and take over the world and take full advantage of some startup entrepreneurs coming to us with a good idea. But I think it's important that we sort of effectively, help people even through the mistakes that we've had over the years. We're all entrepreneurs. We're all excited to support, entrepreneurs with other big ideas. And if anybody else can learn from our mistakes, fantastic.
Yeah, that's a big thing that we're doing here is trying to open up about mistakes and steps along the way, because it does make it easier for people to relate. Did any, now that we're on the topic of mistakes, failures, any stick out over the years?
They're all, besides the cliche, anything that happens is always a lesson learned, and it's always something that you grow through. And there are many times where you've said like, shit, this is a really, total F up, and I really should have gone around this in a different way. But in reality, I think that, I think the principle behind everything is that to really try and observe, try and explore any avenue that you have, to try and learn along the way. So when you're confronted with, with tough decisions, you can take them because you're well prepared for those tough decisions. And if one or two go wrong, so what? Just learn the lesson. You're asking about tough, mistakes. There have been tough things along the way that, we might have made a mistake sometimes, overspending, spending money on the wrong things, spending money on frivolous things. COVID taught us a lot about that when we had to really, cut down our budgets. I think we found out how many mistakes we had done in the past and where we spent money where we didn't have to. I think I wouldn't call it a mistake, but I think one of the things that pains me most, and if you're looking at sort of personal fuck-ups, if you wish, I'll give you my top one, is when I had to let go of people when COVID hit. And even though I try and look at what we could have done differently, and when I look at, how could we have approached this differently? Did we do the right thing? Did we suffer from it? I would say, yes, we suffered a lot from it. Did we do the right thing? I still believe that was the only thing we could have done in the time we did it. We saw, a drop in sales of 70%, within a week or two of COVID hitting. So that was a real tough one to do. And, we had a big wage bill and a number of great employees, that we had to take care of. And the only way we could protect everyone was by sacrificing a few. And even as I say it, it's extremely painful. I always said I'd never be that guy. I read all the Simon Sinek books. I read all the books out there about, you need to take care of everybody. That was the only thing we could have done unless everyone had to go down. And so we did it. I think it's also about how you do things, which is most important. I think you always have to do it with your hand on your heart, saying, how would I want to be treated in this situation? A year on, literally a year on, I look back at the moment, we've managed to recruit 2 of those that we let go of back into the business. A number of the people who we let go of were still on very, very good terms. We did help them find jobs. We did support them as long as we could. And I don't think we could have done it in any different way. Was that, people paying for the mistakes of our past, maybe overspending? I think, the stuff that we spent money on wasn't in, holidays to Ibiza, just partying. They were training, they were, spending maybe on some extra summer parties. They were, extra things that maybe we didn't have to do. In hindsight, we did them, we passed through the experiences. It was painful, but hand on heart, we did what we had to do. And, but it was painful. And I hope there aren't many employees have to go through this because of people's journeys or decisions. Again, COVID, unprecedented, black swan, call it what you want.
For sure. I mean, to get to a position where you actually have employees takes a lot of work, even along the way. It's been quite a long journey for you. We discussed a bit. Would you like to tell us where you started from and how things developed?
Yeah, I guess it all depends on how long we've got for this podcast, but I'll try and skim through as best as I can. I've always been passionate about creativity. I've always been passionate about the arts. I left university in just after year one. I never went back into the second year in for university. I found a job.
Why did you leave university?
Well, I left university because I didn't feel I was learning what I wanted to learn. It felt like a total waste of time at the time. Again, this was 1998. We were learning, studying radio and newspapers in black and white. We were learning more about the fax machine than about the internet. And this is, the world was being totally changed about, the internet coming, the web, everything was changing. I remember like all the different, search engines coming along. I remember Google coming up. I remember Netscape, appearing out of nowhere. So there was a lot of big change. And I was there stuck in a lecture being told what to learn, studying stuff which was written about 10, 15 years ago. And, this is communication. I wanted to be at the next level of innovation. So I left university and I found a job working in a newspaper selling advertising. Big perk, it also paid for a new motorbike, so that was also fantastic. And it also allowed me to spend more money on musical equipment, which was probably, as you can ask our friend over here, costs a bit. Whilst I was selling advertising space, which was probably the best education I got in terms of being put in front of somebody and trying to sell something that doesn't actually exist. Okay, so it all comes down to, how passionate you are about what you're selling, how well you know what you're selling. So I think that was a really great place to be. With another editor at the Malta Independent, I came up with a magazine called Manic. Very successful magazine. I went to sell advertising to one of the agencies out there at the time. They offered me a job. Long story short, I ended up working in an advertising agency. And I thought, hey, I've done it. Mad Men, this is brilliant. I'm in an ad agency. Totally not what happened. One, I was made to cut my long hair at the time. Two, I was pretty much insignificant. And I was so insignificant at the time in terms of the job I had that it was a great opportunity for me to tag along in the most important meetings of the agency. So I was the guy taking notes and making coffees in the big meetings as opposed to handling small accounts. And that obviously put me in a position where I could really, really learn. I was also the guy driving a motorbike, so if anybody wanted a quick delivery, they would send me. And that put me in a position where I, made great friends within the industry. I used to deal a lot with different printers and sign writers, learn their trade, learn their craft, really understand, to get to the bottom of the whole creativity and art of the whole advertising industry. Branding was something that nobody in Malta was doing at the time, and I always started to move, towards that angle. And I started researching, learning, and self-teaching myself, what branding was all about. I remember that when I came up with, the first time I named a brand, I went over to our accountant and I said, we need to charge because this is a really big idea. And the guy said, come on, we can't just charge for an idea. And I was like, that is what we sell, that's the value that we give to businesses. And then I said, I'm not going to be doing this anymore. I left the agency. I went to work in a winery, which was fantastic time. Lots of great hangovers and lots of, nice evenings out. I learned a lot there. I entered, a winery at the time where the levies on local wines on foreign wines were taken off, and basically everybody and your cousin was a wine importer from all over Europe. And so Maltese wines selling against, French wines, Italian wines, and anything under the sun was a tough space to be. But we really focused on coming up with, great creativity, great branding ideas to really push these products. And to try and, teach the Maltese to kind of fall in love again with the local product. I did that for 2 years, super fun. And at one point I said, I want to do something on my own, and I wanted to focus much more on branding, and I wanted to work for many, many different brands. As you can probably see, like my attention span goes very, very quickly. So I wanted to be somebody who worked on different products, different brands at the same time. And so I said, okay, cool, I'll set up my own branding thing. And it wasn't supposed to be a big branding agency. It was me being a consultant and working with freelancers. In fact, the original framework of Brandwagon was a network of freelancers. So I freelanced, different designers, different creatives, different copywriters, photographers, and it was absolutely phenomenal at the time. I was working with different people from different agencies who sometimes worked better with me than they worked in their own agency for the 9 to 5. And it started to sort of crack. Listen, the thing here that makes the difference is that we're focusing a lot more on creativity. We're focusing a lot more on the strategy. We're doing a lot of the thinking up front to avoid the mistakes at a later stage. And I think that made a big difference. Singing in a bar, which is where I was making my money in year one of Brandwagon, that is how I raised my capital, and that is pretty much how I used to live in those days. You know, consulting during the day and singing in bars and weddings at night. I met a designer who was an old friend of mine, and his name was Chris, now one of the partners at Brandwagon. I said, hey Chris, you know what you're doing? He said, no, I'm come back to Malta, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. You know, I'm going to maybe freelance on design. I said, brilliant, I've got a job, I need to get it done like by next week, can you help me out? And he said, sure, you know, and you know, Chris had been working in the UK for quite some time then, and his approach to design was so different to what I was seeing here at the time, which, you know, kind of changed that. And again, you know, Chris joined, eventually became a partner, and that's sort of where Brandwagon kicked off. I always blame Chris for you know, I never wanted Brandwagon to be more than 6 people. At our biggest were 42 people, so somewhere along the line we screwed up. But it was meeting people like Chris, Garrett, who's our financial controller, Chris Knights, who's also one of the partners, Garrett's also one of the partners now, who's our head of tech, which, you know, changed everything. You know, Brandwagon is a place where we've had a lot of amazing talent. And it's a place where, you know, we have passionate people who attract more passionate people, you know, who are persistent about getting it right. And I think that makes all the difference. You know, the passion is critical, the right people is critical, you know, better an agency of a few amazing people rather than a lot of people who aren't sure what they're doing. I always believe, you know, mediocrity breeds mediocrity. If you tolerate mediocrity, you end up with a mediocre company. So this push to always achieve excellence, I think, was always there. How's that for a sum up?
That's a very good sum up, and it opens up more questions for me. In fact, I'd like to just focus in on the music part, because I see a lot of people, obviously everybody, not there's a lot of people, everybody has an identity. Now that could be your football club, it could be could be the music you love. So does music play a part of your identity?
Well, I mean, I think I was a very angry teenager. You know, and music was the place where I could express myself. My stage for many, many years was my bedroom and all my cushions and my mirrors. And I can imagine, I used to, you know, write a lot of poetry. I used to bring out my guitar, crank it up, poor neighbors and poor parents at the time, you know, and just get my, you know, whatever I had on my chest, get it out there. And I used to listen to a lot of Bob Dylan. I used to listen to a lot of, you know, Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. So I was probably influenced by a number of the greats, as well as a number of the, you know, the grunge scene was kicking off at the time. It was a lot of time of rebellion and all that. That's our youth. Music gave me a lot. You know, music, I do consider myself to be an introvert, despite what everybody thinks about me. And music allowed me to express myself in a way and get out whatever I had on my chest or whatever I wanted to say. And that taught me how to be in front of a stage, how to control a crowd, how to, you know, how to be totally aware of what's going on around me. You know, when you're singing in a band, you need to know what's happening in the back. When you're giving your back to the drummer, but you need to know what's happening on the bass. Your senses are much more heightened. So then music really helped. Obviously, music helped me out, taught me a lot in terms of, you know, discipline. You don't train, you don't rehearse, your gig's gonna suck, you know. And at the time when I started Brandwagon, I was 26, and I needed to have some money in my pocket. Music was there to save me again. So, you know, despite all the artistic dreams I ever had and, you know, releasing albums and all this, it was singing covers that, you know, paid the bills in those days. So, yeah, I think music had a lot to do with it.
The early days of Brandwagon, how were you finding your first customers? You were calling up friends, you know, cold calling?
I think, you know, it started off with networking. I was very cheeky and clever at the same time. So one of my first jobs was to work for the Sunday Circle. They were doing a branding project. And I used my first project to get out there and do research on Sunday Circle, which put me in front of a lot of big clients. So I was there talking about their project and at the same time introducing who I was as Brandwagon. A lot of networking helps. And obviously, you know, just getting in front of people and talking about what you're doing it in a very, very passionate way eventually got more work our way. You know, Brandwagon has always really thrived on word of mouth. So the work you do gets you more work, you know, and it's, we say you're only as good as your last job, which sounds really tough and really mean, but that's the truth. If you work well, you will get more work, you know, and that's honestly the truth.
You still network, especially with the shift to everybody, you know, networking from their bedroom.
I hate networking. I'm really not the type of guy who walks into a room and just works the room. That's really not me. But you put me in front of somebody, I can strike a conversation. I think that's important. I've learned a lot from my parents, who were always people who are extremely charitable people who always wanted to help. And I think that training as a kid, that we had to help, and me always wanting to help somebody, I think is what is on my, probably one of my biggest assets in a way that I'm always looking at seeing how I can help somebody. And that helping, obviously, from a business perspective, is how can I help you reach your goals? If I help you reach your goals, I'm going to be as successful as you are. If I can help my staff become better versions of themselves, that means a Brand Wagon is going to be a better version of itself as well. So I think it's this element of being happy to serve, I think was just probably a massive asset. If more people knew that, I think they will get much further. So I think it's that.
I agree a lot with you on that, actually, that the mantra of giving, and you will get back is something that I try to hold dear also. But a question that people might ask is, isn't there a risk that people take advantage of you for giving too much?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, at the end of the day, despite how many people you might be sleeping with at night, you sleep alone. You sleep with your own thoughts. And I think the most important part of it is like, are you happy with how you did today? Are you happy with what you achieved today? Are you happy about the fact that you helped someone despite them either taking it for granted, despite them maybe taking advantage of you? Of course, people are going to take advantage, but you learn. And you learn how to not want to work with these people again. You learn how to cover your bases better next time, how to protect yourself better. So I think it's worth risking serving and risking helping, despite, the 1%, the 2%, that's going to be the bad news. I mean, focus on the positives at the end of the day.
That's it. That's a nice positive mindset that a lot of people can benefit from. The next thing I'm going to bring up is endurance sport. That's something that I read that you've done, something that I've dabbled in a little bit, and I think it's got a lot of benefits for people who are in their personal and private and professional life. So what made you actually take your first steps into triathlons, or was there anything before that?
Look, when I was a kid, I used to swim a lot. Okay. So I used to really enjoy swimming. At 13, just before I got into music, I had a tennis elbow, which I got from swimming, which stopped me from swimming, and I kind of stopped doing that. I started playing in a band, started smoking, drinking, and that was kind of everything stopped in terms of the health benefits. When I was how old was I then? I think I was about, it's not a long thing that I've been doing this. I was probably about 34 that I kind of got back into swimming. I wanted to do something different. And it happened pretty much by accident. We sponsored a charity triathlon. And, one of the guys who was handling the project walked into my room and said, Pete, listen, we're doing, this is a triathlon, we're going to do a relay. Chris is going to be cycling, this guy's going to be running. What do you want to do? I remember I was on the phone with a client, I said, whatever, I'll swim. I said, I used to swim when I was a kid, I'll swim. Yeah. A couple of laps to be all right, to come back. And I kind of said, okay, time passed. I think it was, by then it was probably January, so Christmas holidays were over. Same guy, Martin, walks into the bar and said, Pete, how's the training doing? I was like, training for what exactly? He said, the triathlon. Yeah, it's a couple of laps. No, he said, no, it's not a couple of laps, it's 2 kilometers. I was like, what? I was like, what, in a pool? He said, no. He said, it's open water. I said, you're joking. He said, yeah. He said, I said, all right. So I called a good friend of mine, Kurt Arrigo and Simon Zamit, two very, very good swimmers. Kurt Arrigo, very famous photographer. And I said, so Kurt, apparently I'm doing a 2K race. I said, can you help out? He said, yeah. He said, tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, Bahari Chat. I was like, all right. So I met them, and Simon lent me one of his open water suits, because, it's pretty cold out there in January if you try and swim. And I, kind of put on this suit. He said, you see the tower over there? So it was basically, we left from Bahari Chat, there's a Pembroke Tower. He said, that's 1K, back it's going to be 2K. I said, cool, let's try it. So I jumped into the water, hyper, breathing and freezing. I couldn't take it. Kurt comes up to me and said, shut up and swim. I said, all right. And I swam and I started swimming. I kept on swimming. We did it. It's probably the longest 2-kilometer swim ever done by man. Came back. I was like, it's actually fun. And so I started training. I started going into swimming. And that's kind of how I got into it. I remember I'm a very hard-headed guy, and if you put me to a challenge, then I'm going to really push forward. And I remember my wife was out on a girls' night out. She came back, she says, we're having a really good laugh at you last night. I was like, why? She said, because Amber was saying that you're doing this 2K swim as well. It's like, and we're all laughing as if Pete, smoker, not fit at all. I didn't even own a pair of trainers, I think, by then. I was like, you're going to do this? And I was like, for sure, and I'm going to beat her. You wait for that. So I trained, and I trained harder on the race, and I was just doing the swim length. She was doing the swim, the bike, and the run. On the swim, I came next to her, and I recognized her. I said, like, there's no way, even if I get a heart attack, am I going to let you beat me? And sure enough, I swam as fast as I could. I got to the beach, and there weren't many people on the beach when I got there. I was like, okay, that was pretty slow. And then I look at the sea, and I was, I might actually be good at this. And that's kind of how I got into swimming. Cut a long story short, I really enjoyed the swimming. I eventually got myself into this crazy open water swim from Corsica to Sardinia, which was a 15.5-kilometer swim to raise money for charity. And super tough. I remember, looking down in the deep black, and, in the background, I'm just hearing the music of Jaws, seeing shadows, seeing different shapes underwater. But I think that taught me a lot. And it also, because I was doing it for charity, we were raising money for children with disabilities. I said, I can. And it's just like a, 3.5-hour swim here. I said, some people can't, and I can do this, and I will keep on doing it. And the fact that I think I was so, there in the moment, in touch with nature, I think that made a big difference. And so endurance sports has taught me a lot. Endurance sports has taught me a lot, even just by being, in nature. So most of the sports I do is actually out there. So I do mountain biking, I do trail running, and I do open water swimming. And being, just watching sunrise come up, just, being out there in the elements, I think that makes a massive difference to who we are as people. And I think people should reconnect more with the natural side, with the wild side of the world, of the planet. And I think there'll be better people for it.
It's a nice one. I personally enjoy outdoor sports, as you are mentioning also, and it does seem like being out in nature gives you an extra drive to keep going forward. You feel like you are connected. It's not like you're on a treadmill and you can press stop and you're done. You have to. If you're jogging for 15 kilometers, even if you give up, you need to do another 5 just to get to the next point.
Yeah.
One thing you mentioned is that. You're stubborn in a sense that if someone tells you you're not to do something, you're going to try prove them wrong.
If you say I can't do something, I want to prove that I can.
Any other examples of this?
Oh, I'm sure there are loads of other examples. I mean, just getting into setting up the business, I think was one that people said that would never work. Just getting. I mean, I remember my first gig. I was in Form 4. And it was a school gig, so I organized, because that's how I get shit done. I organized like a lunch break gig. There were 3 bands at the time in our grade, and we were the last band to go up, and I was obviously the main singer. And I went up, and I was totally off and totally out of tune. I totally got booed off stage at the time. So even me coming back to singing, I think was a big thing. And I was just so passionate about the music. Probably not about the singing. I just love music so much that I'm going to do this. Many a time in my life, I just say, I want to do that. I think my motto in life is find a way. So
it's an interesting motto to have. And when looking to the future, so it's obviously 2021. Things are changing slowly. Maybe there's a brighter picture for the rest of the year. Anything on your mind in terms of plans for Brandwagon, for yourself?
Look, the future is bright already. The present is extremely bright. Okay, after what we went through in April last year, we said, we're not going to let this get us down. And we did what we could, and we changed and we transformed the agency totally from A to Z. Our principles are still the same. We still believe, in the importance of taking care of our people. We still believe in the importance of delivering work that's excellent. But we've become a much more agile organization, and we've started to look at a lot more things that we could be doing which are different in terms of the way we attract the market. We've built new business frameworks. We've built new ways and new methodologies of helping our clients, built much stronger ways of getting into their markets and helping customers achieve better. We've come up with ways to help the C-suite and board of directors understand how important brand and comms are and actually find a way to measure it. So I think, we've probably innovated so much over the last 12 months, which is probably more than we've even innovated over the last 15 years. And that's a really amazing place to be. I've never worked this hard, probably since the first year. And then it was probably because I had no idea what I was doing. And despite the fact, I'm 40 now, got 3 kids, so many more responsibilities on my plate, I haven't been having this much fun working so hard in a long time. And I'm loving that. You know, Brandwagon is a very, very new company today than it was 12 months ago. And it's a great place to be and it's a great place to work. And I'm loving seeing the energy and the vibes that we're getting from our staff, from our clients, and even just seeing the work that's coming out. We've never done so much more global work than we've done in the last 12 months. We've done a record amount of branding projects over the last 12 months that we have never done before in any year before. So it's a super exciting time. So, you know, for me and for us, I would say COVID was a total slap in the face, bucket of ice on our, you know, in the cold of the night, which probably woke us up from a bit of a lull that we might have been in. I'm super grateful for that, and I'm super happy to be here. So I can't wait to go out for a big pint.
It was maybe like that, a good pint. I think everybody's really missing that. You know, go just a midweek, hang out with friends 2 hours, be home before midnight. Yeah. Or a bit longer since we haven't done it in a while.
I'm getting old. Earlier is good for me. I'll start earlier and finish it there.
So you've created a business out of being creative, out of branding, out of doing work that other artists are obviously experts at, and you employ a lot of artists in that sense. How do you think the industry has changed for artists and for creators, and how do you think they can actually position themselves better?
Okay, so I think, you know, in terms of definitions, because I'm going to be a pain in the ass over here, I think there's a massive difference between creativity and art. Okay. There's a lot of people in business who are extremely creative, who can't draw, who can't sing, who can't do anything connected to the arts and to design. But creativity is something that we need. Creativity is about problem solving. Creativity is about using everything around you that you've learned over the years or that you've seen in other places and applying, you know, different solutions to new problems. And I think that is about creativity. The arts is what we're in. It was obviously in the performing arts and the creative arts. I think there's a lot of expression that happens over there, and there's a fine line between people who are just artists, and not to say just because it's simply an artist, but somebody who applies their art or their craft, if you wish, to creative problem solving or to creating new brands. And I think that is the interesting angle. I think it's been a really tough place to be in the performing arts, in design in general, in arts in general over the last 12 months. I don't know how it would be if I had to start Brandwagon in 2020, 2021 without being able to sing in bars. I don't know how I'd raise capital. And my heart goes out to a lot of the amazingly talented performers out there who've been stuck in their own houses, garages, or probably some of them moving back in with their parents because they can't afford rent because they haven't been able to earn a living off their trade. Having said that, I predict that we're on the eve of a total revolution in music, in arts, in performances, in film. I think the expression that's going to come out from the lull that we've been in is going to be something which is really impressive, and we should look forward to that. You know, mixing creativity with art and in business is I think just a matter of being multidisciplined. I think in the world today, we went through a period of time where people were meant to be super specialists on one thing. And I think it's great to have a lot of specialists, but we need people who are multidisciplined, people who take inspiration from everywhere, who take ideas from different places, who are totally aware to whatever's going on around them and can see and spot, you know, opportunities in different places. So
how does someone improve their multidisciplinary skills or stay in tune with what's going on around them?
I think it's just do as many things as you can, speak to as many people as you can, get excited and get informed about everything that you see. You know, it's just keep on learning. I think that is the key thing, you know, it probably comes easy to me because I like so many different things. And as many people will tell you, I become obsessive about different angles. You know, so if I'm in mountain biking, I want to learn how a mountain bike works. I want to deconstruct it and reconstruct it, and I want to understand how the technology works. If I'm looking at a drum kit, I want to see how it works, even though I might never play the drums. But I want to figure out how the beats and the rhythms work together. And if you figure out that, then you can potentially figure out how to make a great commercial which has a good bass line and has a good beat, and that can work. And if you get the reverberations and if you get the music, you can probably speak to someone straight into their heart. So how do you get that? Just do stuff. Get interested. You know, put down your phone, or if you have your phone, get off Facebook and get into different things. There's no excuses. You know, you can read, you can listen to audiobooks, you can listen to podcasts, you can, you know, go on different YouTubes. Don't just watch something to be entertained, but just watch something and then watch it again and analyze how it's working. Just be super curious. I think that's how it works.
I get that feeling. Sometimes it's like you end up going down rabbit holes on the internet, just researching lots of different things. Is there anything over the past few months which might be more exciting than others for you?
Well, I'm definitely much more focused on what's happening in the crypto space at the moment. So the whole, blockchain revolution, what's happening with cryptocurrencies. We saw Coinbase, go out on the stock market yesterday, seeing a total unparalleled projections of what's happening over there. We've seen the value of Bitcoin rise phenomenally over the past couple of months. A lot of people say that's probably going to keep going up. There's a lot of change that's happening, obviously, in terms of environmental sustainability goals. People are finally becoming more aware of sustainability, and people are finally becoming more aware of their responsibilities as people and business owners towards the planet. I think I'm very excited about that. So I am definitely watching, the crypto space. I'm definitely watching the environmental sustainability space, something which I hold very, very close to my heart. I like the fact that people are becoming more aware of how important their health is, and that health is not something which is, just do a quick training program and get a six-pack, which is also important and fine, and if you have fun, just go ahead and do it. But it's balancing out, your health, your training, your mental health, which is really, really important, the time you spend with your friends, and just being overly sort of exposed to what everything is around you. Balance, I think, is so important. So, yeah, I think those would be the key things for me.
Those are good ones. And what about if you had to put yourself in my shoes and ask yourself a question, what would that be?
If I had to ask myself a question, what would that be? And I ask myself a couple of questions quite often. Look, one of the things which I think has always been on my mind, and it's probably going to be crazy, but I want to leave Brandwagon to my team. And I started Brandwagon because the ideas I gave to my boss many, many years back, he ignored. I don't want to be in that space where somebody younger than me comes up to me and I just look at him and like, who is this smart ass? I want to look at this guy and say, this guy probably has better ideas than I currently have right now, and I should move out of his way or her way. So I ask myself, how do I become a better leader? I ask myself, how do I make sure that I don't have all these blind spots? And I think, for me, it's always about what's next. How do I lead a better life? How do I achieve more of my own potential? And how do I get out of the way of great potential? That's probably the big question on my mind.
That's a good one. It kind of links back to what we started with, which was reverse leadership. That's interesting how you put it that way. All right, that was the last question. Or the last two. In Malta, we kind of have we often feel like we're competing with our next door neighbors. We tend to forget that we're a country, but it's 500,000 people. So, what do you think about that, and does it change how you act?
It's very easy to look at your competitors and feel threatened or feel pissed off that they're in your field, especially when you've been there trying to plow forward and you see somebody entering a new space. It is human nature to feel threatened to a certain extent. I think it's so important that we collaborate as people. I pass on a lot of work to other people. I pass on a lot of work that I don't want to do to other people, or I pass on a lot of work that I don't think I can do because of ethical reasons or because we've got maybe competitors in our space. There is enough business for the amount of people that there are today. And if there's too little business for the amount of people that there are, then people need to get out of the way. And I think as much as that's a tough thing to think about, you got to be on the top of your game. Otherwise, somebody's going to take your place. And if they do take your place or your space fairly, well, then it's obviously time to go. And so that said, in terms of the local space, I think together we can collaborate, and we should help each other much more, especially within our own space in the creative industry, the creative marketing, branding area. There's a lot of competition. Sometimes it's quite fierce. We should help each other a bit more. And I think we should use Malta as a testing ground and get out there, because there's so much business out there in the world. We should stop looking at Malta as just, the be all and end all. We do a lot of work for global clients, and the expenses to run an organization like ours have escalated over the years. And one of the things I worry about sometimes is that we outprice ourselves from this market in a way that it is unfair to a small business owner on the island that can't afford our services. And it sounds like, what the hell are you talking about, Pete? That sounds like really proud shit to talk about. The reality is that, we're paying our designers, and we're competing for our developers, with big gaming companies, financial companies, fintech companies who can't afford to pay much more, than we can afford to pay based on the local stuff. So the only way we can support that is either to reduce our profitability and then be on the tight edge, or to start focusing on bringing in foreign business as well. And that's where the market is. Of course, what happens? Are we outpricing ourselves from helping the local entrepreneurs? We cannot forget that, the local community needs our work as well. And we need to be able to serve, local business people as well. And it's a tough one. You know what I mean? But I think that all in all, I think there's a lot of space for collaboration. There's potentially going to be a lot of space for mergers and acquisitions over the next couple of years. I think there are opportunities already. But I think, as an industry, we are one community. We do need to help each other for the benefit of the community.
As we mentioned, we might be seeing the end of COVID. Any destinations in your mind that you want to go visit as soon as things open up?
Well, I have to go up to Sweden, and I want to go up to Sweden. That's definitely my first. I've got family in Sweden, so my wife's family is in Sweden. So that's definitely number one. I've been asking myself this question a lot over the years, over the past couple of months. I definitely miss Italy a lot. I specifically miss Sardinia. It's probably one of my favorite places in the world. But there's so many other places I want to visit. Iceland is definitely one of them. For me, get out there, get in nature, get on the mountain bike trails, do some races abroad. That's probably one of the things I miss most is racing.
So you travel for sport now as well?
Yeah, whenever I can.
That's a good one. That's really fun. Good. Okay, it was a pleasure having you here, talking with you and hearing all about your ideas and how you think. Thank you all for watching. This has been another episode of Fuck Ups and Success. We'll see you all at the next episode. Thanks to all who've been following the show over the past couple of weeks. It's been really exciting to actually talk to a number of you in chat, many friends of mine. Thank you all for your support. It's been really encouraging. Before I got started, I wasn't sure how things were going to end up, but it seems like it's been really fun. Really big thanks to Chris Vella and Max Russ and Luca as well, who helped me up with this whole setup. If you decide to subscribe, that's really super. And see you at the next one. Ciao.